Hello everyone, welcome back to Gelvin Valley. We're in the middle of cultivating, trying to get our fields ready for fall planting here on Gelvin Valley, Wild Wild Wes's masterpiece for Farming Sim 15. And we're making somewhat quick work of it, although as I look at my rent time, I am down to an hour and just under 50 minutes to get it all done. I think I had it for 5 hours total, and we still have a fair ways to go, so I can never seem to properly set the time or know just how long it's going to take to do something. Maybe because I change how much land we have periodically, although this particular year there isn't going to be any new land purchases or anything like that. I still have 2 crops that I'm carrying, kind of gambling on it if you will, waiting for the price to recover before I sell them off. Alright, that takes care of this field. On to number 4, just up the hill. I think we can sneak out this gate here. Oh, I can't see behind the tree. I'm causing damage to a rented vehicle. That's the way it is. What can I say? Sneak in the gate here. This is a very steep field. I've contemplated many times returning it to grass and selling it, but I don't know, I kind of like it too. Alright, now we'll take care of the outer edge, hopefully. And it looks like in some of these fields, I guess I had destroyed the grass kind of on the outer edge, and I've been belly aching about that this whole time, trying to preserve some ambiance. Although in real life, it wouldn't just take the grass out, it would render it to dirt too. Maybe just take a brief pause. Let me open this map. Oh, hey, I just noticed we got some hail coming. Yee. Well, hopefully, yeah, that doesn't cause damage. I'm trying to remember if I have my hail damage mod in here. I don't recall if we do or not. So yeah, we've done this side of the valley. We are coming on this side now. If I put it in here, you can see it better. Yeah. So we still have all these brown shaded fields, which were canola that we need to take out. Oops. Yeah, I just want to make sure I have plenty in the feeding trough. That's mainly what I was after. Make sure my sheep are taken care of. At some point, I'll probably need to pause and go clip some grass for them. Actually, on that, I've kind of clipped it wherever I can, except out of their pasture. But I did plant 2 or a couple new fields for them, kind of with the neighbors there. I forget the guy's name. Denny? I don't know what his name was. Alright, coming around the corner here. So, the past couple of episodes... I'm going too fast now. We have talked about... We've tried to answer Russell's question about story ideas for farming sim that aren't just kind of a rehash of standard theme of inherit a farm and return to it. or leaving a city job, and so he kind of challenged us, Russell did, to come up with some new ideas for potential storylines. And so I've been sharing a couple that I had, and I got more of them too, kind of in this word processor document that I've kept for the series that I have on Glen Ellie. Trouble is I don't know if I'm ever gonna, come on, get down, there we go, ever going to be able to make it come to a reality, but it sure is fun thinking of the ideas. I still wish our friend Atomic 67 was still around. He was a master storyteller, and I'm sure he'd have all sorts of advice on a question like this. Although I gotta say, talking to him in later years, he, when you record your voice and put it on the internet, maybe sometimes you wonder if you sound silly or if others think you look stupid for what you did. I know he kind of mentioned a little chagrin over the stories and things that he posted. I guess I kind of get that. Maybe I'd feel a little funny too, but I thought they were just awesome. And believe you me, there are other people that have done far more foolish things on the internet, if you really want to get to that, that he ever did. This was for all of our benefit. But anyway, I'm digressing. Another idea that I had that I sent to Russell, it was, how about a female farmer? Let's say her husband is in a farming accident, and she now has to pick up the pieces and keep the farm going while tending to her now invalid husband. That one is definitely wacky, but it's also quite real. I mean, I know of cases where exactly that happened, and so this does have some basis in reality, where the husband or one of the spouses had a farming accident that so laid them up that all the work was put on the spouse in terms of keeping the farm going. And it's one of those things you just say, life isn't fair, it sucks, whatever adjective you want to put to it, but it happens. And frankly, farm accidents would be a interesting topic in its own right. I think we've covered some of it here before, but in terms of a storyline, there's definitely some things there that could be fruitful in a storytelling endeavor. Hey, we got one more pass and we are done here. I'm going to take a swing down the far side and clean up the last little bits that we have here. Yeah, even as I do this, here the other day was the birthday or commemorative birthday of a brother-in-law of mine who passed away from cancer. He wasn't a farmer, he was a dad and a husband, and it happened, was it 2-3 years ago? I almost think it was the same year that we lost Atomic 67. And just, one of those unfortunate things where it was his time, and now to watch my sister-in-law, he left, behind a family. How many children do they have? 7 or 8 kids. So a large family, young kids. His youngest was, I don't think she was even 2 when they had her. So that is no small feat, for her to pick up the pieces and keep moving. She, of course, isn't doesn't have to go into the same career field that her husband was. This isn't a farming situation, and she's able to take care of her kids, but hard nonetheless. So, and I know for most of us, we probably wouldn't have to look very far to find a circumstance or people we know where they've met this unfortunate happening, whether accident or in the case of my brother-in-law, death. Man, this thing just seems like it's zipping. Oh. Try to do this carefully. I'm going to take out a bunch of grass, swing in this corner. Oh dear. But there's been other grass that's been taken out along the edge. You know what I think some of it is? I put the thing in the editor to fix all the field edges, and I think in some cases I added additional grass. I think that's what I did, so it feels like I'm doing some significant damage, but I don't know that I actually am when I look at this particular field kind of as a example. I'm hesitant to say too much while I'm doing the outer edge. There goes some more grass, darn it. Oh, but it'll climb the hill at a slower speed than it came down the hill at least. Okay, another idea I had, I can't remember if I mentioned this one to Russell or not. I don't think I did. How about a farmer that is close to town and he's fighting some issues being close to town? Neighbors are complaining about barnyard odor, about dust, chemicals going in the fields, and all sorts of these things, threatening with lawsuits. So finally he sells out and starts over someplace else. I don't think that that's a storyline premise that I've heard before. I'm sure something like that would be pretty difficult, although I would observe that if he has land close to town that's developable, probably could earn good money selling those acres off, and it would enable him to start somewhere else, kind of with a leg up, if you will. How about another situation where a farmer, whether close to town or not, a local municipality, government, says, we're going to put a road over the top of your property, and have the farmer deal with that situation. And that is definitely real life. I've heard that happen again and again, and I've watched it in our community. I know where our home sits. There's a particular road that everybody around here knows is kind of on what would be called the urban growth boundary. I know these kinds of things, land planning by the government is many times seen as, something bad or something limiting of, freedom of what to do with your property. But here's the thing. Farmland is increasingly scarce, and this is probably part of the reason they do it. And when you have a city, ordinarily development happens in a flat area over good soil, near water typically. And so what eventually happens is farmers are pushed out, and all this productive land that could be raising food for people is paved over, and houses are put on it. And houses are important too, don't get me wrong, but I think sometimes some of the planning that gets done by the government is to help ensure that we always have enough farmland to feed ourselves. So as much as we may not like some of their regulations, the stands they take on regulating how many houses can be put in a certain area or whatnot, I think they are trying to ultimately help the farms, help society as a whole to continue feeding itself, which of course is important. Head on up the hill here, kind of coming the back way. All these fields up here that would be fun to farm at some point if I ever get opportunity. Once again, I just love the features of the map that Wes has built in, like this here, kind of a back road way to get up here. But Wes, I know you're still watching these periodically. If you see this one, could you tell me why the fence up here, this rock wall, there it is so curved? Is there a story behind that? I mean, it's curved over here too. It just isn't in a straight line, and I'm guessing you had a reason, and I'm just kind of curious what the reason is. Always have been curious kind of about that. But yeah, here in our area, I know for years, remember I mentioned there was a road that kind of was a demarcation of urban growth boundary, meaning on one side of the road was town, and on the other side was country, mainly. But there was a farmer who had some land just on the other side of the urban growth line. And that guy fought it tooth and nail. I think they went to court. And really the issue, sometimes, the way it's portrayed in the press or how the farmers will even describe it among themselves isn't exactly accurate or fair. The issue is money. Can we just be honest? It's money, because what typically happens, when the government comes in, at least here in the States, and they want to put in a road or something over the top of an area, is they have the right to do that. They can take the land by eminent domain, I think the principle is called, but they do have to compensate the landowner for it, and therein is the rub. It's how much should the compensation be, that they pay for it. Well, and farmland has a certain value, and of course, developable land has a certain value. And the rub is all those years, a farmer had his land and it was considered exclusive farm use, and now all of a sudden it's changing its character to something other than exclusive farm use. If it's EFU, exclusive farm use, it has one value, and if that's all you can do on it, well, the land it isn't worth that much, because you only can get from it what you can do through farming activity, of course. But once it changes its character to developable land, well, it's worth a lot more, and of course it's immediately worth a lot more to those developing it if they can get cheap farmland, or kind of tongue-in-cheek here, to develop or do what they're going to do to the property. So that's always a huge dispute, as to how everything should be valued, and yeah, there's lots of things that have been gone to court over it. But yeah, this farmer, it's been kind of sad over the years. There was a huge school built on his land that was kind of on the town side of it, if you will. They just plunked it right in the middle, and Interestingly, the farmer, I think, still lives there. I think he's elderly now. So it's probably all going to be paved over once he passes, he and his wife or whatever. The farmhouse is still there. The old buildings are still there. But when I was a kid, for many years, I mean, he was actively farming it, right up to the edge of town. And yeah, just one of those things. He had a fight, and honestly, I don't even know if he won or lost. Like I say, it's usually down to money, so I know they put that school in there, and I really don't know what they compensated or paid him for all that. So, one of those things. Maybe let me get this off. Oops, not that. I wanted this. No, where am I? Down here. Well, maybe I'll just take a second lap here. Get up on the hill. Maybe I could just as well do the whole thing round and round. Oh, I still got my beacons on. Oh, so steep in here. When you see it overhead, a lot of times you don't really realize how steep it truly is. Alright, so that was another idea. There was the notion of a tenant farmer who, a tenant would be someone who rents the land and works really hard and ultimately is able to buy the underlying land. That I know there's grounds in reality too. I remember, this is years ago when I worked in the big town up north, Portland. One of the clients of the accounting firm that we had, a friend of one of the partners, was a grass seed farmer. And I think I was told he rented about 2,000 acres to do what he did, and he didn't own any of it himself. Now, past couple of years, grass seed farming has fallen kind of on hard times, so I don't know how that fella's doing, or if he was able to ultimately buy the land. He was doing it in an area up north where he was really fighting urbanization, kind of creeping out into over the top of the farmland. Same thing that happens, and like I say, it's kind of tragic that all the good land, or a lot of the good land, that's ends up being taken up by development for property rather than farm production. But it happens. But it's kind of cool, and someone is able to fulfill a dream and buy their own land and go out on their own instead of being under someone else's thumb, as it were, by not owning the underlying asset. Come on, get up there. There we go. Going around Stonehenge here. Probably when it comes to stories, there's probably some that could be made off of it here. And it's been a while since I've done it, but I'm almost positive that Wes put some funny sounds that if you stand in the middle of this, you can hear it. Let me see if we can do that. Ha ha ha. I heard the sound. I don't know if you did. Wes put it in there. Sounds kind of creepy, so I'm going to get back to the tractor. Maybe means we shouldn't even be farming it out here, but what can I say? We are. At least we're taking care of those pesky weed patches, and they will never again appear in our fields. Yeah, there's another one right ahead of me here. we're going to be taking out, crush it underfoot of our cultivator. Nice. Alright, more story ideas. Let's see here. I think I said could be all sorts of unique farms following up on milking sheep. Oh yeah, I had one in the previous episode. This is based on Scroft. In his videos, he has a series of his real-life farmhand adventures, if you will, on a sheep dairy. I'm not sure I'd ever heard of such a thing, although we know, of course, sheep and pigs and all mammals, for the most part, produce milk for their offspring, but most of us tend to think of cow milk only for milk source, or maybe goat milk. Not sheep. That definitely was a new one, but there could be many other unique forms of farming. You know, and most of the farming that we see in stories here, I mean, it's just the traditional fare of, dry land crops, if you will. You know, like right now, we're cultivating a canola field, wheat, barley, corn, and so forth. So there could be storylines in all sorts of other commodities. You know, it might take some unique mods, if you will. But, you know, I've mentioned grass seed off and on, and in Farm Sim 17, I have a grass seed mod where we implemented that in game as another crop. Well, actually, we already have grass in here already, so it was just figuring out a way to harvest it in the fields. I live in an area where there are a lot of tree nuts, so walnuts, hazelnuts, almonds down in California and so forth. I don't know that I've ever seen those modded or the farming practices with them. I have an uncle that has a sod farm, you know, where they cut the sod in strips and haul it on these trucks to customers. I don't think I've ever seen that modded before. I would love to do it if I had the skills to make 3D models. Because I have a place to go to at least see kind of what they would look like. Alright, got the big part of this one done. Head over here to the west. Try to get the rest of it done. There's also a number of other oil seeds that are raised here in the valley where I live. A plant called meadow foam. You know, seed oil that comes from it is used in hundreds of cosmetic products. All these things, you know, these products that men and women use every day and never give a thought as to where they came from. So many of them rooted in the farm and in good old common everyday agriculture. That might be something that could be done. So anyway, maybe something specialty. There could be a story point about it. The last thing I put on here, and there's so many ideas, you know, that could be come up with, of course, and this only scratches the surface, but I think my last one here says, how about a farming storyline that incorporates things not typically done? I was telling Russell, I think this is something he alluded to in his video. You know, maybe with, for example, in Gelvin Valley here, I have, 600 sheep, something like that. Probably with that many sheep, there's bound to be problems from time to time that require veterinary services or the cattle dairy herd and so on. So maybe a mod might require a mod Maybe some role play could be around a meeting of a vet, or kind of like I asked a question of Wes about these rock walls. Well, maybe making some of those walls. Goodness knows there's lots of rock that comes from the field, and those need maintenance, just like real life fences. There are also real life fences, or not real life, but you know what I'm saying. Standard fences in here too. That also, maybe there's a maintenance factor or something that's needed on them. Now this here, I think I fixed. Yeah, that's just a little bit of chopped straw, kind of riding up the hill. Maybe to get rid of it, I gotta cultivate up there, even if it's not going to impact the dirt, but taking out grass. There we go. I think we got most of it. Probably get a speed coming down this hill again. Equipment repair and maintenance. I know I'm using the damage mod in here, although I've escaped some of the consequences of it by renting equipment and then turning it back, when I'm done with the lease. So there, take out some bushes. But yeah, maybe there could be an equipment repair aspect in here, or maybe even a farm equipment repairman role play could make a good storyline too. And some of it is mod dependent. There's a few mods out there, like for balers, where you got to refill the twine in it, and some of those things just to add a little bit more realism. Maybe your combine gets plugged. There was a mod I saw a number of years ago. I think it was for Farm Sim 15. That was really clever. You had the choice as a player as to how fast to run your combine, and it would tell you how full you were. And I think you maybe had a point where if it was plugged, or it could become plugged if you were, pushing it too hard. So all sorts of other things that could create fun, interesting storylines, assuming the person has time and ability to put it all together, and I am probably not that person. So maybe for the moment I'll just keep dreaming and try to keep keep farming in here till I get the work done. So I think the bell went off. Gift from Atomic 67. Thanks for coming in here and listening to me ramble this particular session. Hope you're doing great, and I will see you on the next one. Happy farming in the meantime.